today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What are the latest set of updates to the women's Ring IQ pound-for-pound list based on this past weekend's action where we saw Natasha Jonas, then champion, attempt to unify titles with champion Lauren Price. And it was Lauren that emerged the victor, per the rules that govern the list. No fighter coming right off a loss and no fighter absent of a world title is allowed to maintain a rank, and thus Natasha Jonas is ejected from the number 7 spot, allowing Michaela Mayer to advance and Gabby Fundora, so that Lauren Price can come in at number 9 for beating 2 reigning champions in Jessica McCaskill and Natasha Jonas, though still coming in behind Michaela Mayer and just behind Gabby Fundora, because she's not an undisputed champion like Gabby, though she is very close, and she's not a 2-weight champion like Michaela Mayer, who holds the last puzzle piece to the welterweight throne. Now, if Lauren Price later on this year can take on Michaela and unseat her, defeat her, then she will advance to the number 7 spot. She comes in at number 9, just ahead of 2-weight champion Dina Thorsland, who we haven't seen in a while, but it's my understanding that we're set to hear some very big news when it comes to Dina and what banner we can expect to see her fight under moving forward.
Big news. Sexy news.
Ow!
Though I am not at liberty to divulge that information at this time, it will be made public shortly.
Over to the men's pound-for-pound list.
Per the rules that govern it, where Artur Beterbiev, then undisputed champion, sat in the number 5 spot. That spot is now occupied by his adversary, Dmitry Bivol.
The newly crowned undisputed champion per the rules that govern the list. In defeating a pound-for-pound fighter, you become one yourself.
And no fighter coming right off a loss like Artur, absent of a world title or world titles like Artur, is allowed to maintain a spot. Thus, Dmitry Bivol has taken him over, coming in just ahead of Teofimo Lopez, who really hasn't looked impressive in a long while, where Dmitry has beaten at least 2 guys on this list. He beat Canelo Alvarez, who comes in at number 4, and Zurdo Ramirez, who ranks in at number 8.
Why is Canelo ranked ahead of Dmitry if Dmitry beat him?
A valid question. Remember what this is. This is a pound-for-pound list. Even though Dmitry beat Canelo, he beat him at his 4th weight. He may have proven that he is a better light heavyweight than Canelo Alvarez, but perhaps not a better fighter overall. Not unless Dmitry can become a champion at 4 weights, like Canelo has become a champion at 4 weights. Most other pound-for-pound lists do not account for that. The difference in size, that yes, Dmitry did beat Canelo Alvarez, but he beat him at his 4th weight. You lose a little something on the way up.
Every time you move up in weight, what physical strengths you may have had at one weight, you lose a little something at the next.
And you have to account for that. Most other pound-for-pound lists don't, but then again, most other pound-for-pound lists are little more than popularity contests. Still a cushy spot for Dmitry Bivol, coming in within the top 5, having beaten at least 2 fighters that are on this list.
We all saw what he did to Canelo Alvarez upon Canelo's second endeavor, his second venture into the light heavyweight division, and we saw what he did to Zurdo. He completely dominated Zurdo, where naturally bigger men, cruiserweights, are getting beaten up by Zurdo. Dmitry beat him easy.
Then why is Zurdo there?
Because he's a 2-weight champion who beat 3 world champions and took their belts overall. In the super middleweight division, he beat Arthur Abraham for what was his WBO. Years later, he moves up to cruiser, beats Arsene Goulamarian for his WBA, then Chris Billum Smith for his WBO, and thus the argument is there.
These are the current updates to the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, it would seem that a would-be news source got caught in a lie, got caught fibbing while throwing Vergil Ortiz's name around.
A Twitter account that goes by the name Brunch Boxing claimed that Carlos Adames and Vergil Ortiz had not been paid for the February 22nd Riyadh season event,
claiming that a historic night of boxing is once again being overshadowed by controversy. a manufactured controversy because it didn't take long for Vergil Ortiz to address this inaccurate story and these inaccurate rumors. The rumors were first questioned by spectators who caught wind of the story. Guy who goes by the name Matt in connection with this brunch boxing account said, without getting into specifics, all I will say is that I stand by my writer on this story, to which Vergil Ortiz responded, well, he lied, at least regarding me. It would seem that Vergil was paid, and there was never any reason to think that he wasn't, outside of these guys manufacturing a controversy, because that's what they were doing. Why?
You won't know it at first glance, but these are Haymanites. That scum who would go as far as manufacturing a story, manufacturing a controversy, to put Turkey in a negative light.
But why would they want to put Turkey in a negative light?
Because they view Turkey as the ops to Al Heyman. They view Turkey as Al Heyman's opposition, and thus they want to drag his name in the mud. They want to slander him, everything he does and everything he's trying to do, when what he tried to do was put together a great card with a bunch of great fights at an affordable price. And these people would slander him anyway, because these people,
they're not boxing fans.
and they damn sure ain't no news source manufacturing controversies just to have something to tweet about. What they are grifters and engagement farmers, because ever since Twitter allowed anybody with a blue tick to make a little bit of money on their app,
Everybody's got sources now. Everybody's pretending to be a journalist, and it's all for the clicks.
when Twitter shells out whatever little bit of cash they're paying these people, it's not like they're gonna fact check their stories to see if they're accurate or not. It's all about the traffic, it's all about the metrics, the clicks, and thus would-be sources like these are little more than just engagement farmers.
Shameless ones.
Still holding out hope that Al Heyman, their savior, can turn it all around after what was an abysmal 2024. It really isn't looking much better in 2025. Down from 19 shows they used to do on Showtime to just 5 in the previous calendar year, willing to tear down anyone and everyone that isn't Al Heyman. At first, it was Eddie Hearn and the DAZN platform that they used to go after. Now, it's Turkey.
What I view as an extension, an updated model, if you will, of what used to be the LDBC. We don't hear much from those guys anymore.
It would seem that these are the guys that have taken their place, manufacturing stories the same way those other guys used to. I remember it was these same guys who claimed that the New York State Athletic Commission did not conduct a test on Ryan Garcia, an anti-doping test, which also turned out to be bullshit.
These are low-quality people. It's best to distance yourself from them.
Because when you don't have any credentials or a reputation to protect, you can say just about anything with impunity, and thus, people like this do. I would say they should be embarrassed,
Because these are full-grown adults.
but in society, in a very general sense, there is always that substrata of individuals that operate on this lower wavelength.
People can't help but be what they are.
Thus, you can't shame them for it, so they are, in essence, shameless.
Back over to Dmitry Bivol. An update to a story we talked about in my previous video, where Dmitry Bivol and David Benavidez are closing in on a fight agreement, but the discrepancy seems to be how close they are, or how close they're not.
Undisputed light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol and WBC interim title holder David Benavidez may be close to finalizing a deal for a fight later this year. ESPN Knockout's Julius Julianis reported that the two camps are close to a deal for the fight, which would be targeted for the summer. Bivol, 24-1 with 12 knockouts, is represented by Matchroom Boxing, while Benavidez, 30-0 with 24 KOs, is handled by the PBC and Samson Lukowicz. Lukowicz told Boxing Scene that the news took him by surprise, saying that he had sent a very large offer on Thursday to Bivol's lawyer, but says he hasn't heard back from Bivol's team. Perhaps someone knows better than me, but I'd be very happy if that's the case, Lukowicz told Boxing Scene on Sunday night.
Then what's the discrepancy?
The discrepancy isn't that they're having a dialogue, the discrepancy is how close they are to finalizing a deal. Maybe tomorrow I will have a response. Lukowicz said his proposal, which he says was approved by the PBC, proposed for the fight to take place in September, though he says that Bivol's team was welcome to pick the month that would best suit them, and Benavidez's team would set the date. Lukowicz's offer came just one day after the World Boxing Council ordered that Bivol make a mandatory defense against Benavidez, who is coming off of a dominant victory over David Morrell last month to solidify his position as interim title holder and an elite light heavyweight.
That's a stretch. David Morrell wasn't any more experienced at light heavyweight than David Benavidez was. To say that beating David Morrell at light heavyweight makes him elite?
Riyadh season head Turki El Sheikh, who has hosted Bivol's past 4 fights in Saudi, told Ring Magazine on Friday that he was no longer interested in Bivol versus Benavidez and would not place a bid on that fight. El Sheikh added, "I think Bivol knows who has delivered for him and who hasn't. My advice to Bivol is don't be late, because every day something changes."
El Sheikh had indicated after the Bivol versus Better Bev rematch that he was interested in a rubber match between the two, and there is a precedent because Artur won the first one and Dimitri won the second. We need a tiebreaker.
Lending credence to the notion that dialogues are in fact happening behind the scenes, boxing insider Rick Glacier said, "Wow, just told me by a boxing powerhouse that PBC is going to use all efforts to secure and promote Bivol versus Benavidez this summer in an attempt to show that PBC is still a powerhouse in the game, and to slow the muscle of Turki El Sheikh, as Turki El Sheikh has already said publicly he's not going to bid on this mandated fight."
That changes things.
Knowing what it will take financially to make this fight, and neither fighter being a pay-per-view attraction, will make it a financial bloodbath, and it could very well doom PBC. In truth, PBC needs to move very slowly, thinking diligently on all decisions, because PBC can't compete with Turki El Sheikh. Repeating for those in the back of the room, PBC can't compete with Turki El Sheikh, but based on Turki's own comments, they're not competing. It's not a bidding war between Turki and the PBC for this fight, not if he said he's not going to put a bid in for it.
I figure that if anybody would be competing for the rights to this fight, it would be between Matchroom and the PBC, not Turki and the PBC.
Reactions to this news are pouring in. A guy who goes by the name Zhuang Corp said, "Benavidez is getting a shot at 4 belts and a top pound-for-pound fighter, but what does he bring to the table? It doesn't seem like he has much to play hardball with." To which veteran boxing scribe Dan Raphael responded, "A, he has a lot more popularity than Dimitri Bivol, is a big ticket seller and a pay-per-view seller."
Yeah, all of that is bullshit, and we'll get into why.
B, who said it's hardball? They are negotiating. Negotiating does not mean close to finalized.
So when you talk about popularity, by what metric are you measuring their popularity?
If what you're talking about are social media metrics, Dimitri Bivol has a bigger following than David Benavidez, and it's not even close. David's got a little over 600,000 followers on Insta, where Dimitri has 2.2 million.
He has more than 3 times as many people following him on his social media account. If you think about the stages that they fought on, Dimitri Bivol has fought on much bigger stages than David Benavidez for more money.
And it's not even close. Where David Benavidez is still scratching and sniffing for a Canelo fight, Dimitri's already been there and done that and won.
He beat Canelo, remember? The face of boxing? And you're telling me that David's more popular.
You talk about the fighters' purses. You talk about their earning power. Remember, you have to leverage the David Benavidez fight against whatever Dimitri stands to make with Artur,
which would be paid for by Turki. Turki wants to do the rubber match.
So then the question becomes, is David such a big pay-per-view draw and such a big ticket seller in America that Dimitri would stand to make more with David than he would with Artur?
Hell no.
Hell no. That's a pipe dream, buddy. David is not such a big ticket seller in America and not such a big pay-per-view draw, because if he were, we'd know what the numbers are for his fights. The reason we don't is because there ain't nothing there. There's nothing to brag about. I mean, what the hell were the numbers for the David Morrell fight? Because we still don't know. I'm not telling you that Dimitri Bivol is a household name. I'm telling you that neither is David Benavidez.
I'm telling you that he doesn't have anywhere near as much leverage as Dan Raphael lets on. You have to remember that David is the mandatory challenger. Dimitri is the champion.
If you guys don't reach a deal within the grace period, it goes to a purse bid, and whoever wins the bid,
Dimitri still gets most of the money. Dimitri still gets the lion's share because he's the champion. We're talking about assigned splits anywhere in between 75% to 25
or 70-30.
In a purse bid situation, the splits are assigned by the sanctioning body staging the bid. That would be the World Boxing Council.
So when you say that the PBC made a play to do this fight on their terms, I'm wondering if they actually have enough money to bring Dimitri to the table, because he's estimated to have made in the neighborhood of $10 million for the Better Beef fight.
That's what Turkey gave him.
And I don't think for a second that's what David Benavidez made fighting David Morrell. Remember, you have to leverage whatever Dimitri stands to make boxing Artur on Turkey's dime against whatever the PBC is offering him. And I don't think the offer is comparable.
Nope.
I, as a consumer, I, as a boxing fan, would actually prefer to see Bivol versus Benavidez over the summer months, and then after Bivol beats David, which I'm sure he will, then he can box Artur again.
Are you sure that Dimitri can beat David Benavidez on a PBC show? Look at what happened to Lamont Roach.
A valid point. That if the PBC theoretically were the ones at the helm of the promotion, then you can expect chicanery. You can expect shenanigans.
But David is just such a basic boxer.
So ordinary that I feel like Dimitri could beat him wherever it happens.
Even at the PBC?
Let's put it another way. I don't think David can beat Dimitri Bivol anywhere. I think that
at the very worst, you end up with another draw, but David would not end up with Dimitri's belts. Kinda like how Lamont Roach beat Tank, and everybody knows it, but the most they gave him is a draw?
Maybe the same thing could happen to Dimitri, to where he beats David Benavidez, beats him comprehensively, but they settle on a draw, so that David doesn't look bad.
I still won't get him those belts.
David is not a good fighter. He's not an elite fighter. He's just a guy who is getting by on being bigger than everybody else at super middle, not that big at light heavy.
What about the sparring sessions?
If sparring sessions determined the outcome of fights, then Zerto would have beat Dimitri. Then Martin Bacoli would have beat Joseph Parker if it were all about sparring sessions.
I ain't got no stock in gym stories from years ago.
See where this goes.